I guess this is a question for anyone who wants to go first, but what steps would you recommend to someone who's, or to a bank, to a function, to a compliance officer who's looking to first understand what their problems are and then actually ultimately identify what the relevant solution is to that problem?
So I can take this on first. So I think the hardest challenge is to identify what the problem is. What is it that we are trying to solve? A lot of the times what happens is that we get so busy in our day-to-day life that becomes a normal. And once that becomes normal, it is very hard to get out of it and look at it objectively, that what are our challenges? Now, the good part is the folks who have been doing this for a long time, they are very well aware of what the challenges are. It is just a matter of bringing them forward. So a couple of examples there would be that if you are working on a particular regulation and you're finding that it is taking you a year just to identify what do you need to do with that regulation, well, that is a problem. If you are facing a challenge where you believe that you have to work with 3 different lines of defense and each one of them have their own solutions, that is a problem. If in order to just give a single answer that are we meeting the requirements of any one regulation, then there are plenty of regulations out there to discuss. And in order to help answer that one question, you have to bring a lot of people in the meeting room and go through paperwork and Excels to answer it. Well, that is a problem. So I think these are all the problems that you need to put objectively on the table and see if this is what we are doing today. Are there opportunities to streamline some of those things, to bring in various different sorts of efficiencies, whether they are cost efficiencies, whether they're operational efficiencies, whether they are your timeline efficiencies, whether they are responding back to your regulators and auditors in a much more effective way so that nothing kind of slips in the whole process. These are all the opportunities which are out there and which are very much shared across many financial institutions and beyond, and other industries as well. I think that is the starting point to identify the problem. And then I think when we are looking at the solution, that's a whole different ballgame as well. A lot of the times, there are so many different solutions and tool sets out there. What to choose, how to identify that the solution is right set for you. And more often than not, what I have seen is clients focusing on the buzzwords. Oh, does it have the machine learning? Does it have the AI? Yes, that's perfect. Is it cheap? Oh, fantastic. Let's just go and deploy it. But they tend to miss a lot of the other key contributing factors in your decision making. And the way I look at it, there are 4 or 5 key things that you got to take a look at. First of all of it has to start from your challenges and the problems that you're facing, what your requirements are. Obviously, the vendors can help you polish some of them, but you have to have those baseline challenges identified. The second thing becomes the technology that the vendor offers or the solutions offer. Is it aligned with your corporate strategy? Are you looking into more modern cloud-based solutions? Are you looking into more on-prem type work? What are the technical capabilities that the solution is offering? The third thing that becomes very important is you got to take a look at the vendor's market standing. Who are their partners? Who are their clients? If they are more into the RegTech type environment, do they have the seed funding? Who is providing that seed funding? How many awards in the industry that they have won? The fourth thing that I will mention in there is understanding the support operations or the support capabilities that vendor can provide you. Are they going to be around 6 months from now? Do they have folks on the ground to help you implement some of those solutions? If there are any challenges, are they able to help you resolve those challenges? You got to take a look into that very closely. And then the last thing where it comes to cost. And you have to take a look at and consider not only the licensing cost, which is often the case that folks look at. But you got to take a look at a total cost of ownership, which includes licensing, which includes your support cost, which includes your training cost, which includes, if you're going to implement it internally, how many people are you going to take to implement? And from timeline standpoint, what is it going to take from total cost of opportunity standpoint as well? And once you bring all of those 5 components together, that gives you a holistic view. So not to get daunted, there is a good news. The good news is all of the vendors that are out there, they can help you out. All of the consulting companies that are out there that you may be partnering up with, they can help you out. And don't be shy to ask the vendors for demos of their products, to conduct a short proof of concept where they can use your requirement, they can use your data, and you can test it out from the standpoint whether it is going to meet your needs or not. And most of the times, those proof of concepts are not very time intensive or very cost intensive. So when you're looking at it all, I think these are some of the recommendations and suggestions that I can provide to folks.
Brilliant framework and very clear and concise. I think from my point of view, it's also really important that the vendor, when you're speaking to them, you have confidence that they can almost hold your hand through that process. It should be a bit of a concern if they don't know what they should be doing and taking you through that sort of validating requirements, being able to prove and evidence them, bring the relevant stakeholders together for approval and push that through into finally the procurement process. A hallmark for success of a vendor should be that the vendor should be able to provide that service for you. Melanie, from your experience working in the bank, always being surrounded by the operational challenges, the regulatory challenges, how in your head did you prioritize what the key problem was and how you wanted to solve it?
So I think I want to leverage a point that Koen made a few minutes ago and then piggyback on what Adeel talked about. So Koen mentioned the credit crisis of 2008. And I know for a fact that organizations, we really moved quickly and, with all hands on deck to start solving the problems and the gaps that arose as a result of that credit crisis. And we've gotten to the point where, organizations are great at identifying what our strengths are. We're not so great at focusing on our limitations and therefore how to solve for those limitations. So I think what happens is we need to start assigning an opportunity cost to those limitations. And once you identify and start to bring to the forefront what your limitations are, and to Adeel's point of the siloing and the need to understand what you're solving for, you can only do that if you clearly identify your limitations. And once you bring those to the forefront and start assigning the costs of those continued limitations, then you begin to be very clear about what your needs are and what it's going to take to achieve those needs. And yes, we can keep throwing more people at it, but that's not an efficient way to solve a lingering limitation. So identifying what we're great at, bueno, we all do that and we do it every day. But starting to spend some time on those, what I call the lingering limitations, is really where you begin to get the benefit of understanding what not only what's needed for the now, but what's needed for the future. Because what happened in 2008 and the all of the regulations and the expectations that came out of 2008, we're just seeing more and more of that. And my feeling is that once COVID is in the rearview mirror, there's going to be more regulations linked to the kinds of experiences that we're having across the globe now that are just starting to emerge. So again, it's identifying those lingering limitations and really putting those forward as this is what we need to solve for now in order to make us even better at what we already know we're good at.
I agree, because I feel that there's somehow mindset that also comes into the picture. It's for the second line to be a little bit more first line, and that's scary sometimes, because they will need to come up and they'll have to find own solutions for problems that they face, and that was traditionally not what was asked from a second line, because they were just undergoing regulations and providing advice forwards. And I think also for the first line, let's be honest, they also have a mindset change, because for this to happen, it needs to be the case that the first line does not see compliance as a ticks the box mentality, because as long as that is the case, no change will be put into place. So I think that the key element here is collaboration, and collaboration is a scary thing at the same time, because Adeel was giving a nice framework about going out there and looking at the startup and see if they're still there in 6 months. Oh my God, that's very difficult for a startup to prove that you're still there in 6 months, because as soon as you give your financial balance and the bank looks at it, then you get 0 points out of 10. You have no way to talk. So I do believe that the industry has a bigger thing to solve too, and that's also about collaboration. And that's, to me, what I understand about that is that since 2008, to come back on the crisis, the regulator asked a tremendous amount of data from the banks or from the industry. And today, it still applies that if a bank runs, for example, anti-money laundering checks on a big set of data and they find something, you can imagine that if you run the same tool, but on a bigger data set, which is held by the regulator, you're probably more likely to find better results. And I think at the end of the day, it should be the industry that have the objective to anticipate that there's no fraud in our system. And that means collaboration between not just the RegTechs, the banks, but also the supervisors. So I think, yeah, RegTech is one thing, but SupTech is the next one.